Today, the cameras of the Fishing Magazine television series travel to Grand Lake of the Cherokees in northeastern Oklahoma. This magnificent lake has produced many of Central Pro-Am Association's tournament records. Our Central Pro-Am anglers really enjoy fishing here, and we think you'll really enjoy watching them in action. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Year after year, few lakes in America can match Oklahoma's Grand Lake of the Cherokees for heavyweight catches of hot weather bass. Now, when you go to a summertime tournament at Grand Lake, you take plenty of sunscreen and cool water because you can count on it being just plain hot. Like it was for the Grand Lake Pro-Am in 1995, when the temperature was a scorching 100 degrees. But this year, there's a surprise. It's 30 degrees cooler, overcast, and the water is up in the willows. That could mean 2 days of fantastic fishing. On hand for this tournament is perhaps the finest field of anglers ever assembled for a Central Pro-Am tournament. There are 8 current and former Bassmasters Classic qualifiers, 1 Megabucks champion, 2 Redman All-American champions, and a fistful of BASS Top 100 competitors. At the top of the list is Mark Davis, the defending Bassmasters Classic champion, and the only angler to win the Classic and the BASS Angler of the Year title in the same year. The field also includes former Megabucks champion Tommy Biffle, former Top 100 and 2-time Central Pro-Am title holder Randy Blockett, plus Classic qualifiers Doug Garrett, Darrell Robertson, Charlie Campbell, Jim Akins, and Gary Pendergrass. If that weren't enough, throw in Alan Head, who's led the Grand Lake Pro-Am at the end of day 1 on 2 occasions, only to fall from the top on day 2. He'd like nothing better than to redeem himself this year. And finally, there's Dave Barker, who won at Grand Lake in 1995 by setting a Central Pro-Am one-day record of 24.95 pounds. What you have, folks, is the formula for fireworks. On the morning of day 1, it feels more like mid-April than mid-June, and dark clouds hold the potential for heavy rain later in the day. Mark Davis has located concentrations of good fish around the islands in Horse Creek. Like many other contestants, he's pitching into shallow water around flooded willows, but he's added his own special twist. Knowing the bass will see a parade of jigs, lizards, and plastic worms from other Pro-Am anglers, Davis is pitching a soft plastic jerkbait with only a small nail weight in the tail and letting it flutter down near the roots of the willows. His tactic works early, and he lands this good bass. And a few minutes later, he gets another to put him well on his way to a limit. Randy Blockett finished second to Dave Barker in 1995 by a mere 5 ounces. And this year, he thinks he's found the fish to win it all. Blockett plans to catch a limit early, flipping into the willows before moving out to deeper water and casting a Fire Tiger crankbait to get bigger fish. Tommy Biffle is doing just what you'd expect. He's pitching a jig into the heaviest cover he can find, and he's a master at it. A model of heavy cover efficiency, Biffle sets the hook on this bass and then brings it out into open water before swinging it into the boat to complete his limit. Like Biffle, Jim Akins is pitching a jig into the flooded willows. Akins used his trademark black jig to qualify for the Bassmasters Classic in 1993, and he believes it could produce big results at Grand this year. Joe Mayer and partner Brian McDuffie are on a roll of their own, casting crankbaits to open spots among the willows. They're both well on their way to limits, but they'll need to find bigger fish to be in the running here. At the afternoon weigh-in, Greg Ryan sets the early Pro Division standard with a 5-fish limit of 14.1 pounds, anchored by this 5.9-pound bass. But his lead quickly vanishes when Mike Roller takes over the lead with 16.7 pounds. A short time later, Roller is overtaken by the Central Pro-Am defending Angler of the Year, Orlean Smith, with 17.05 pounds. Then comes Tommy Biffle.
We got a limit here, good sack of fish. Let's call the weight. There's the start, 15 point. Let me finish that up, okay? 20 pounds, 15.20 pounds. Is that about what you expected for today?
Oh, Artie, I thought I'd catch a little bit more. The big fish, good fish didn't bite, so, sun comes out tomorrow and things change. Maybe it'll get a little bit better.
Biffle is soon followed by fellow Oklahoman Gary Reed.
One away, one for big bass. Looky here. Uh-oh, here we go. 6.05 pounds. That fish worth about $2,000 if it were to hold up. 5 fish here. Let's take a look here. Good job, Gary Reed. 17.50 pounds. Put your hands together for Gary Reed.
A short time later, Mark Davis weighs in his catch.
17.60 pounds. Worth $12,500. That's your new leader right now in the Pro Division, Mark Davis.
I'm fishing a way that's a little different probably than anybody else is doing. I've got a little twist, something a little bit different. I'm able to catch these good fish fishing right behind other anglers. Now, whether that'll keep working tomorrow or not, I don't know. But
forecast is the sun comes out full blown tomorrow.
That just suits me fine.
Just suit me fine. I guess it would. Ladies and gentlemen, your new leader in the Pro Division, Mark Davis.
When the second flight arrives, Randy Blockett comes to the scales.
Here's your sack leading the tournament right now, Mark Davis, but not for long. Looky here, 19.45 pounds.
I had a chance to weigh the biggest stringer of fish I've ever caught in a tournament today, but, if you get the bites, all you can ask for is the bites. If you lose them, it's your own fault.
Well, you are now the Big Bass leader and the Pro Division leader, Randy Blockett. Big round of applause for him.
Beaver Lake champion Doug Garrett puts himself in position to win his second straight Pro Division title with a solid first day limit of 16.55 pounds. Brent Chapman follows suit with a limit that's slightly better at 17.55 pounds. Missourian John Kramer stuns the crowd and takes the Big Bass lead with this 7 1/4 pounder. Then Alan Head steps to the scales.
Oh, what does that say?
Well, it's changing, Ernie. 20.35.
I think you're right. 20.35 pounds.
Well, I'm going to go back and try and do the same thing, Ernie, but I've been here before, and you got to do it 2 days in a row. There's lots of good fishermen here, and it makes it real tough.
Ladies and gentlemen, the new leader in the Pro Division, Alan Head. Put your hands together for him.
Competition is also keen in the amateur division. Larry Crouch takes the early lead with 13.2 pounds, but he eventually yields the lead to Richard McMillan. McMillan has a limit weighing 15.1 pounds. Finally, Oklahoman Ty Thomas comes to the scales.
18.05 pounds. Does that do what I think it does? A new leader in the amateur division, Ty Thomas.
At the end of a dramatic day one, in which the Pro Division lead changed 7 times, Alan Head holds the lead with 20.35 pounds. Randy Blockett is second, less than a pound behind, while Mark Davis, Brent Chapman, and Gary Reed complete the top 5. The rest of the top 10 is so tightly bunched, 0.6 of a pound separate Troy Aikens in 6th place from Mike Roller in 10th. In the amateur division, Ty Thomas is the first day leader with 17.8 pounds. Richard McMillan is in second, just over 2.5 pounds back. Kelly Matthews, Ted Wise, and Larry Crouch round out the top 5. The rest of the top 10 is led by Scott Gayer and Sean Terry, who are tied for 6th with 11.95 pounds. Stay tuned for exciting Day 2 action. We'll be right back. On the morning of Day 2, clouds still hang overhead, and there's a definite chill in the air. But the forecast calls for the sun to break through later in the day, which could affect the fishing. Alan Head tries to relax talking to Tommy Biffle, while Randy Blockett prepares for battle, and Mark Davis waits patiently with amateur partner Vandy Cameron. Finally, there's no more waiting. Alan Head knows there are fish in the willows, but he also realizes most anglers will go there. So he's opted instead to fish points and drop-offs in 8 to 12 feet of water. There may not be as many fish on the drop-offs, but they may be more accessible than those deep in the willows, and there is definitely less competition for them. Out with the first flight today, Head goes straight to one of his prime spots. Almost immediately, he gets a strike, and this one's going to push 5 pounds. That's as good a start as anyone could ask for. Randy Blockett returns to the crankbait pattern that produced for him on day 1, and he too gets rolling quickly. It's a quality fish and keeps him close on Head's trail. Things are not starting as quickly for Mark Davis. He's back in the islands in Horse Creek, getting no action. But Alan Head is. He's now got his second keeper. Randy Blockett is relentlessly pursuing him. He quickly gets his second keeper, and it's bigger than Head's. Now the two are virtually tied for the lead. But Mark Davis is getting left farther behind. He still has no keepers, and he goes to a topwater to give the bass something different to look at. Alan Head continues to score. This one will tip the scales at about 4 pounds and give him some breathing room ahead of Randy Blockett. Finally, Mark Davis is on the scoreboard. But even with this 3.5 pounder, he still has a lot of ground to make up. Meanwhile, Alan Head continues to roll with this 2 pounder and extends his lead over Blockett. About the same time, Mark Davis lands his second keeper of the day, but he's still 10 pounds behind. In contrast to the others, things are going downhill for Randy Blockett. He's fishing where he lost a 6 pounder the day before, but the sun is beginning to peek through the clouds and his fish could turn off. Meanwhile, back in Horse Creek, the worm, or rather the soft jerkbait, is beginning to turn for Mark Davis. This is the fish he's been looking for. In a matter of one cast, Davis has moved ahead of Randy Blockett and sliced Alan Head's lead in half. But how do you spell relief for second-day jitters? Alan Head spells it L-U-N-K-E-R. This one evades the net momentarily, but Craig Breedlove finally brings her in. It's another 5 pounder, and Head regains his commanding lead. It's a good start. No, it's a great start. But this is Grand Lake, and Head witnessed Dave Barker's 25-pound catch last year. Victory is not yet his, even with a catch of over 18 pounds. The first day was so close that if any angler in the top 30 has a day like Barker did in 1995, Head is still vulnerable. And when he misses his second fish in a row, he's got to wonder if the luck stops here. After a long dry spell, Randy Blockett finally gets a strike. This one's about to pull off under the boat, but Blockett pushes the free spool button just in time to save it, and Jackie Rutherford scoops it up with the net. Mark Davis doesn't know the score, but he's been around long enough to know you can't worry about anybody else's fish. All you can do is concentrate on catching your own. This small keeper is number 4 and puts him neck and neck with Blockett. A few minutes later, he gets another good fish to complete his limit, and he's just about even with Alan Head for day 2. Now, he must get one more big fish to close the gap from day 1. But today, after falling from the lead twice before, Alan Head is not to be denied. He still has more spots to run. As soon as he sets the hook, Head knows this fish could be the difference maker, and he's ready for an Olympic gold medal struggle. This 6-pounder is his biggest fish of the day and allows him to cull his small keeper. Now, his second day total is over 20 pounds, and it'll take a record Central Pro-Am performance to overtake him. Some days, if you just show up for work, things go your way. And today, everything is going Alan Head's way. At the afternoon weigh-in, the scales tell the story.
5 bass. 25.05 pounds. That's a new record. Hold them up there. Ladies and gentlemen, a new leader in the Pro Division, 45.40 pounds, Alan Head from Grove, Oklahoma.
The race for second is still up for grabs. Mark Davis weighs in first.
18, 5 fish, 18.60 pounds, 36.20 pounds in this tournament. Mark Davis.
Later, it's Randy Blockett.
4 fish, 14 point. 10 pounds. Like I say, the cream always comes to the top, and you did again in this tournament, frustrating as it might be. 33.60. That's right in the top 5 now. Good job, Randy Blockett.
Others came through on this second day, too. One is Clyde Bossman, whose only misfortune was to have his day of a lifetime the same day as Alan Head.
Oh, looky here. 5 bass. Looky here. Almost broke Alan Head's stringer today. Almost. 24.45 pounds. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together. What a record catch there he's got. Clyde Boston from Afton, Oklahoma. Now that's what your fish are like in Grand Lake right there. How'd you catch those good fish today? What'd you catch them on? Dragging a bait? What were you dragging? The tournament's over, Clyde. I mean, we're going home. Crankbait. Dragging a crankbait. Oh, my. Well, we're going to write an article about this one. 26.75 pounds. Good job, sir.
In the amateur division, first day leader Ty Thomas is blanked, leaving the title wide open for anyone. Richard McMillan is ready to grab the brass ring.
Here we go. Let's take a look in here real close at Mr. Toledo. 9 point. £35, 24.45 pounds. A new leader in the amateur division, Richard McMillan from Springfield, Missouri. Good job, sir.
Finally, only Larry Crouch has a chance to overtake McMillan.
He has a chance to challenge. As 5 fat fish, he has the limit. Let's take a look. 11.55 pounds. Is that going to do it? Richard McMillan, I'm sorry, we're not even going to mess around. 24.75 pounds. A new leader in the amateur division, Larry Crouch.
Larry Crouch does it, coming through with his first Central Pro-Am title, barely edging Richard McMillan and Mike Hall, while Oklahomans John Sappington and Steve Wright complete the top 5. It's nip and tuck in the rest of the top 10 as Michael Hess barely edges first day leader Ty Thomas for 6th place. But the real fireworks are in the Pro Division, where Alan Head wins the title with a Central Pro-Am record of 45.4 pounds, outdistancing runner-up Mark Davis by over 9 pounds. Randy Blockett finishes 3rd, while Brent Chapman holds on to his 4th place spot, and Doug Garrett climbs to 5th. Terry Thomas and Terry Cole end up in a tie for 6th place to pace the rest of the top 10. It's now time for Tips from the Top, techniques you can use to catch more fish. Brought to you by Quantum, the choice of serious fishermen.
I know everybody always talks about the local hot shots or whatever, and I am from Grove, but I really feel fortunate. Every time that you fish your hometown lake, it really takes a lot of concentration not to just go fish holes. I set a pattern during pre-practice, and it held up. Worked good for me, and it had big fish on it. A lot of the guys were fishing the willow trees, and the willows had a lot of fish on them during the pre-practice period, but it didn't really hold up for them. It was cloudy for 2 days in a row, and the deeper fish on the rocky ledges and then the brush piles held up in the cloudy weather. My main pattern was rock ledges that had a little bit of brush on them. It didn't necessarily have to have brush on it, but if it did, it was added bonus. Most of my fish come like from 8 to 12 foot. I did catch some fish in 4 foot of water, but most of them are in 8 to 12. Most all of my fish come out of the mid-lake area. Whenever I say mid-lake, that's from like Horse Creek to Sailboat Bridge. I also had some fish located down the lake in some of the real clear water, but the first day of the tournament I couldn't do any good down there, so I come back up and ended up catching most all of my fish on a LaRue's worm. I was catching them on a June bug colored, is 11-inch worm, and using a 5/16 ounce Texas rig. It seemed like if you just let it sit there and you jiggle it a couple of times and then move it just a short distance and jiggle it again, it seemed like they hit it better. Most everybody can fish a worm if they'll take their time and concentrate on it. It's real hard for a lot of people when they start fishing in 10 to 12 foot of water to keep contact with the bottom. And if you can't keep contact with the bottom, most of the time you're not going to catch a fish. Now, I'm not saying that a fish won't run out and get a worm no matter how fast you pull it. But whenever you've got a sluggish bite, you especially need to keep in good contact with the bottom. If you feel the chunk rock or the brush and you can jiggle it up and down in it or bump it up against that rock, it always seems to help trigger a strike.
There's a lot of talk in sports about playing under pressure. And you saw how Ellen Head responded to the pressure of being the day one leader with a record-setting performance. That's the mark of a champion. Be sure and join us next time as we travel to Lake Dardanelle on the Arkansas River. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week on Fishing Magazine.